employees have the salary growth. So this is how the game industry looks like before the war. And we counted 30,000 employees and 400 plus companies, branches, and teams. There were lots of new deals, investments, lots of programs for juniors, trainees, even up to the end of January 2022. And there are here companies where there were more than 10,000 people. There were Playrix, Ubisoft, Gameloft, Wargaming, Roommate, and so on. And they were top outsourcers company. Roommate, iLogos, Enix, Kivuru, AAA Gamer Studio, and etc. And they were Ukrainian-only companies with no overseas offices, with only Ukrainian roots. It's a GCK, Game World, AB Games, Frag Labs. And all of them has been influenced dramatically. We had the war started, and even up to the end of the February, many companies preparing safety plans, additional plans for their employees. Someone prepared like safety vacation. They rented some houses, for example, in Poland and Spain, are planning to relocate their employees there. And for sure, nobody don't want to believe that such scenario as the war could be possible nowadays, and nobody don't want to be relocated. There were only 10% of the people who were ready to relocate. And when the war started, we don't have a relocation, we have evacuation, especially from eastern regions. With minimal of things, with the countries which won't be changing, won't be planning, but on which it will be the mostly possible to evacuate. And immediately in the end of the February, the borders were closed to the males from the age from 18 and up to 60. And additionally to this, many females don't want to leave their country because all of them have their husbands, families, and so on. And Russian and Belarusian companies and markets ties with an aggressor. And if we will talk about some Ukrainian companies who were lots of collaboration with these markets, who have lots of freelance collaborating or some roots, offices in these markets, all of them were influenced dramatically. And if we will talk about Ukrainian companies, the Ukrainian government published the legislation for all of them, so they can't to continue work with these markets. And if they would like to be some kind of sneaky, it will be very bad for them because we have freezed investments, we have freezed payment in the banks, and etc. And there are no possibility to collaborate with them no more. Here I put some sources which we are used in our additional analytics. It's our big salary report This year it was our 5th report. Usually we are asking more than 2,500 people, but this year we asked only Ukrainian employees, so it were a little bit less. And also we're using labor market research on InGame Job website. It's a vacancy segregator. We're also using it actively, and there we can only to analyze of job postings from different companies. Also, we have our inner statistics because we're communicated with lots of developers, businesses, companies, and for sure open data from different sources. So, businesses. How analytics showed, outsourcers suffered the most. In the beginning, they were freezed investments, many deals were closed, and foreign investors were afraid to invest lots of money to the Ukraine because it was a so unstable situation. And Russian and Belarusian companies, related companies, had numerous problems. I'd like to highlight Belarusian companies because they were double influence with typical situation. Firstly, it was Lukashenko's regime, and lots of companies were moved to other countries, lots of to Ukraine, and open offices there. And this year we had the war, and they must to go somewhere again. But at the still time, all of us need to have a work-life balance. Many of us continue to donate systematically and continue to full-time work and continue to create lots of applications to support our economy. And even some companies have shown significant growth. For example, outsources, it's Kivuru, Roommate, Pingel Games, they shown the growth. And this is outsources who was suffered the most in the beginning. And many companies setting up European offices and hiring abroad, for example, in Georgia, Turkey, Poland, and other. As I told, the investments were really freezed, and some VC funds from Ukraine reworked offers. And unfortunately, we still have no systematically support from the Ukrainian government or international institutions. But at the same time, there were 3 announced deals in the nearest times. Maybe up to the December, we will have an update. It was our founder research. And Epic and Qualcomm Games grants were for teams who are using Unreal Engine, and also it's supported Ukrainian developers a lot. And this is Ivan Kovalyov, indie game developer who won the Google Play Indie Showcase. It was a kind of puzzle games, and interesting that he had the nomination between European developers. And this is information from our big salary report. Last year we have 664 respondents, and this year we have 761. And this year we were asked only Ukrainian developers. They were different specialties. Mostly, as you see, they were senior and middle plus positions. And so there was one of the questions which we were asked. The respondents, how has the war affected your company? And it's a good point that 85% of companies continue to work and they are stable. And relocated 29% who could and agreed. And even 2% returned to the office. And here's the statistics that 94% of respondents lived in the Ukraine before the war, and only 6% were lived abroad. And after the war, we have amount of 77% who lived in Ukraine and 23 who lived outside the country. The difference is 17%. This is a country where Ukrainians moved mostly. Poland, Germany, Cyprus, Czech Republic, Spain, Portugal, Turkey, Bulgaria, and Georgia. And the DOE made the same analytics, and they shown where Ukrainian specialists moving inside the country. For sure, it's obviously that the most amount it's Western Ukraine. I put a separate slide for Kharkiv because it was also the biggest IT hub in the Ukraine and it was influenced the most. But I'd like to highlight how the Kharkiv people are strong because despite of this hard situation, then continue to work and continue to provide full services for the game dev. And what I saw when I was communicating with people from Kharkiv, they are absolutely not ready to change, for example, something, I mean, in career development, because they told me honestly that it's so hard to plan something in such situation, and they still are on stress of this situation, so it's not relevant for them to even to talk for perspective about some vacancies. And also we were asked, where do you plan to live after the victory of the Ukraine? And 66% plan return to the Ukraine. 24 haven't decided yet, and there are only 10% who won't return to the Ukraine. We see that now it's obviously at least 78% are working remotely, and we have near 6% who are working even now in the office. And temporary unemployment only 9%. And also it was an important question for the respondents. Did your company make some statements when the war started? And near 75% told that yes, and they are supporting it, and 15 not, but they consider it's necessary, and 7% not, and it's inappropriate. And there were 3% who did not support the statement of the company. And here we have how the companies was affiliated with Russia. No, it's 48%. And I'd like to highlight the last data. Near 2% told that yes, and it's a Russian company. So we have such companies like this. And here are the data of ENPS on the employees. We were asking kind of booking questions. So do you recommend your company to your friends? Do you really satisfy your company? And so on. And the range was from -100 and +100. So it's obviously that minus 50% told it's a Russian company and they absolutely don't recommend to work there. And how the war affected relations to employers. And there are 37% who are ready to work with the companies with not obvious ties and connections with Russia. 33% ready to work only with the Ukrainian companies. And ready to work with any company, it's 9%. Also, it was a Dow article which were very useful. They highlighted one of the biggest companies, for example, Playrix, and their reactions in the social medias and inside the company where the war started. So if we will talk about Playrix, it was reaction in social networks. It was kind of it's hard to be silent, so it's not were very definitely statements, but they were. Content moderation between corporate chats and in the social medias, additional payments for the employees, and it was interesting fact that additional payments were get not only Ukrainian employees, but also Russian workers. And now the planning to closure Kyiv office. Wargaming, it was also reaction. It was strange reactions in social medias because before the war, they also were some sneaky. And now the company have no incomes from Russian and Belarusian companies, offices, and also they provide moderation in games public. Gameloft, it was public position that the games were closed in the Russian market and games removing from stores. But it still haven't any statement about not hiring in the Russia. And here how the position of the candidates in communication, in chatting change during this time. So mostly candidates completely switch to the Ukrainian language. I mean, and we also put the first messages in the Ukrainian, and the Ukrainian candidates also trying to speak fully in Ukrainian language. And even if it's hard for them, they declined option to continue speaking Russia, for example, during screenings, interviews, and so on. And in case with the foreign candidates, I have the case where it was a Canadian developer, and it was 3 times. So they go to my profile, check the city where I live, and so today the foreign candidates even know where Lviv it is. Yeah, and all our screenings with Ukrainian candidates, with the foreign candidates, began with a small talk about situation in the Ukraine. And it's initially by the candidates, not from our side. And if we will back to ENPS, this is inside Ukraine. So last 3 years, the ENPAs between companies have increased 3 times. And this is English language level between the candidates. It will be useful for someone who would like to hire some Ukrainian specialists. So mostly it's an intermediate level, but if someone would like to choose maybe sales specialists or managers who should have a little bit higher English level, it will be near 28%. Yeah, and also we were asked which languages do you speak now? And mostly the candidates mixing languages. And it's obviously because they're mixing languages even before the war, and it's hard. For many candidates, it's hard to immediately switch to fully to the Ukrainian. But there were 70%, a little bit more, who were Ukrainian speaking even before the war. And there are 15% who keep on speaking Russian. And switching into the process, it's a near 20%. And this is a median about amount of the vacancies which we had, for example, in the end of January 2022. And for sure in March we have dropped. And in April and May we have a significant growth. And the last data which we had, it was June 2022, and it was a summer, and we had dropped again. But now it's in autumn, and we also have vacancies growth. Yeah, and as we see, definitely do not ready to change the work at this moment. It's 47%. And looking for job, actively looking for job, it's a 19%. This is the main reason for changing jobs. For sure, the highest percent, it's a willingness to pay it more. And it's also obviously. And there are 11% about the position of the company, about the work. Yeah, there are also other reasons, but we have time, so I won't be stop on this slide lots of much. Yeah, and he will talk about salaries. As many knows, in the Ukraine we have a type of private entrepreneur collaboration, and with this system we had 5% of the taxes plus medical insurance. And when the war started, we were able to pay 2% of the taxes, and medical insurance, it's for desire. But interesting that lots of top managers don't lead this plus, so they still continue to pay even a medical insurance. And all of us to get salaries in dollars or euros, and during the war we need to sell the currency due to national bank rate. And in this case we are losing lots of money because the difference with the actual market and with the national bank rate are in the median of 20–30%. And Ukrainians get salaries monthly, and they are named the amounts in the net. So mostly all of levels had the increased. And this is the median of the salaries for middle specialists. And also there are median for senior specialists. And also here we have a significant growth. If you would like to hire someone, you should pay attention on the blue line. And now respondents answered that if we will consider some vacancies, we want to have more, which we have now. It's also obviously so you should to add some of dollars, $100 to this amounts which we have on blue lines. And at this time, 48% have no significant bonuses at all. Here I put some charitable initiatives. For sure, lots of us already know about some of them. It's InGame Job and Value Stand Up for Ukraine, Game Dev Under Bombs from the Game Gathering, Cyprus from Ukraine initiative, Palanitsa, also the cool charity found, Help Kharkiv, and volunteers and companies donate. Here the amount, how much the companies donated. And if you need to know more, I put the link here below. And also their amount, how together games and gamers raised and donated. And thank you, Stalker Game. They also provided lots of support, especially it's found back alive. And they started to where lots of art in war thematic, and also there are lots of reborning of some famous painting. For example, I did not put it here because it's very famous in social medias. For example, Gustav Klimt picture. The picture named Kisses, and they're also now very famous on some charity websites with works of Ukrainian artists, and you can buy some of them or donate. And remember about takeaway. All of us not should, but need to find work-life balance. We are still work hard, and we need to support our country, to support Ukrainian game developers. We had canceling of Russian, Belarusian related companies. Here, hashtag stand up with Ukraine. And 70% of respondents fled abroad. 67 plan to live in the Ukraine after war finished. 5% would change their job. 80% of specialists are volunteering now. And in general, in the median, salaries have increased. And here I also put sources, how you can help, games gathering under bombs, and all of us should use Ukrainian services, application, and to support Ukrainian economy. Thank you very much for your attention. Maybe you have some questions.
The position was about 2,800 for senior and like 1.8 for middle. It was the information from your private database or from the sources like
Information about salaries we put from our big salary report, which we provided in May. Yeah.
Right now we have the situation in Ukraine that the senior artist is about 3,000.5. That's much higher than I saw here. That's why I'm interested in maybe we found that candidates with high salary expectations, or I missed something.
It also depends about which area of artist we're talking about. I mean, outsources on not outsources. Yeah. So here we have the mixed, and it's a median. So, and as I told, the amounts are still changing from the summer because we have our report in the end of May. And we planned that it will be some changes, but it wasn't only artists. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Let's thank our wonderful presenter with our loud applauses.